Okay. Oh my goodness. Hi, Kelly. I got one of you back. I have to give people a minute to find their way back in.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Awesome.
Okay. All right, good. I unmuted.
I'm kind of like half cut off now on this other computer, but at least it's working. So I set this Zoom event up as a meeting so that I could be able to hear you guys and have you ask questions whenever you wanted. So being able to hear you is pretty key part. Yeah, and now I've kicked a few people off, but hopefully they can find their way back on.
I just went back into the link you put on Facebook and just
same link. Okay,
again.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So I was hoping we could start out with everybody just saying hello and where they're from. Kelly, do you mind starting out?
Sure, no, not a problem. Hi, I'm Kelly. I am from Chatham, New Jersey, which is about 45 minutes outside of New York City.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. And anything you're especially wanting to learn today or in the class, Kelly?
I've started to clean up my cosmetics and my household products and things like that, but I'm still suffering from a lot of digestive issues and menopause weight gain. So I clearly need to do more, and I suspect that it's my toxic load. So
okay, awesome, perfect. Okay, you're sort of exactly who I'm directing this class to. Okay, so Carrie, can you say hi? Let me see, I'll unmute you. There we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm from Ontario, Canada. Fairly close to Ottawa, if that helps anybody. And I'm looking forward to finding out what ickiness is hiding in my house, because I've been on this journey for about 2 years already, so I've done a lot of the same cleaning as you've done, Kelly. And I certainly do need to clean up my eating.
Okay, awesome. Welcome. Carrie, yeah, I think I remember seeing you on this survey, so thank you. I can hear you. Karen, since we've got you on the spot, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Karen. I'm from Minnesota, in the Twin Cities area. I guess I'm in that menopause. Clean out a little better. The hormonal acne is crazy.
Oh, I remember seeing that comment. She's having like menopausal acne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So skin detox, healthy skin.
Okay, I'm glad you wrote that comment, because at first I was like, huh, but then I actually saw a couple things just researching for this class that could be pertinent to the toxins kind of acne conversation. Mm-hmm. So that's great. Mm-hmm. And where did you say you're from again?
I'm in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, just south of Minneapolis.
Okay, awesome. I heard that's a nice area.
Yeah, we like it.
Okay, let's see who else we have. Patricia, are you available? You might not have audio. I don't hear Patricia.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Jean?
Yeah.
Hi, Jean.
Hello.
I know you, but do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm from Houston, Texas. And I am really looking forward to this series because I suspect I got some toxins, not only in my body, but in my house. So
I don't know about your house, Jean, but I do suspect your body. So I'm glad you're on here. And Patricia shared in the chat, I don't think she has audio, but she's from Portola, California, outside of Reno. And she's working on switching to green cleaning. So yeah, welcome Jean, welcome Patricia. Let's see who else we have. Lena?
Hi.
Hi. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm from Sacramento, California.
Okay.
And I got lots of detox stuff. So
okay.
I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. And you feel like you've already learned a lot?
Huh?
And you feel like you've already learned a lot?
Huh?
You feel like you've already come a long way on learning about detox?
Well, thanks to all the docu-series that have been going on, I've learned a lot, but I've got a lot of dental issues, a lot of retrovirus type stuff and blah, 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 blah. Just the run-of-the-mill stuff.
So some of the like body detox might be.
Yeah, the body toxins.
Okay.
My environment is okay.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you. And I think the last one, at least that I'm seeing, is Rosina. Rosina, do you have a microphone? I unmuted you. I don't hear you, but if you're at work or you can't talk, you can always write in the chat too. So welcome. This is definitely not everybody is here, but I know that some people are working, and just kind of getting in the swing of the class might take a minute too. I had like this set up for 4 a.m., which confused a few people, but here we are. So I wanted to announce a couple of things. I'm going to do some different raffles as we go along here to make it more fun. And I wanted to say the first winner, who's not on the call right yet, but I picked her out, so she still gets to be the winner, for sharing on the Facebook group. We have, where is she? Elisa Scafuto from New Jersey. She's going to get an On Guard oil, which is a great oil for cold and flu season and traveling on an airplane and that kind of a thing. So congratulations, Elisa. We'll find you. And then I have one more oil for somebody who might have watched the videos and learned something about how plastics transfer into food. So there's 4 ways that plastics increase their transfer into food. If you can remember 3 of them, I'm raffling a deep blue oil, which is the oil for pain and headaches. Anybody remember? You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself. That was kind of a hard one.
So the first one that I can remember is if the plastic is heated up, you don't want to heat food in the plastic or put food in plastic while it's still, before it's cool.
Yes, so heat is one way.
Oil.
Oil, very good. You only need one more.
See, this is the menopause memory now. I'm losing my memory too.
So I can give you some hints. So anything that makes the plastic more permeable or the food sort of more permeable. I don't know if that's a good hint.
I can't remember.
Okay.
I need a better hint.
Okay, I'm going to give you a better hint. So one of them would be to do with how you treat the plastic.
Oh, washing it in the dishwasher?
Washing the dishwasher, we'll say ding, 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 close enough. Because, yeah, if there's abrasion to the plastic. So
yeah.
Plastic cutting board that you cut on, the
Yep.
dishwasher causes abrasion. So
plastic
can transfer. Plastic can kind of always transfer. I know I had a question on Facebook about, putting bread in a bag in the freezer. And I would say that's kind of one of the safest places to have plastic if you have to have it, because there's no heat, there's no abrasion, there's no oil, that kind of a thing. Well, there is always some transfer. So the 4 ways total are abrasion, acid, heat, and oil. So I know many people in this group are probably already being careful about glass containers, but some are just getting introduced to this. And then, I think we all have our blind spots. Like I really wasn't aware of the issues about washing blenders. Many of us in the health world are like, have NutriBullets and have, different blenders. And yeah, if we're not washing those really gently, we are creating some transfer there. So hi, Mickey. I want to introduce you, Mickey. So Mickey is assisting with the group. She's a health coach and mold survivor. She's super knowledgeable about toxins and mold. So I'm going to unmute you, Mickey, if you want to say where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, we can continue to live in New Jersey, helping out Bridget with Detox. Very knowledgeable. I love her. She's great. If I could help anybody with anything, let me know. I'm in the group all the time, and looking forward to connecting with each and every one of you guys.
Yeah, Mickey and I met over mold bonding.
Yes.
And she's super knowledgeable. So great. And then I don't know if I read this out loud. Rosina wrote in that she's from Ontario, but she's living in Ohio. She hasn't watched anything yet, which is totally fine, Rosina, but she has hypothyroidism and a cyst and had to deal with a hysterectomy, weight gain, fatigue, and different issues popping up. So yeah, so I think that when I tried to design this course, this is the first time around, and I think I made it maybe a little too broad in some ways, but health is a tough one. So I thought if I made it just about detoxing the home, it might not solve enough problems for people, because to be honest, like even when we clean up the home, if there's already been quite a bit of downward spiral of our health from toxicity or stress or menopause changes or whatever, to bring back that vitality is going to take more than switching out your shampoo. But switching out your shampoo, all that stuff is super important. So I wanted to include at least one lesson on that today. There's still plenty more topics we haven't gotten into. We won't get into deep today. We won't deeply get into mold, but I did share 7 mold lectures. So if you want to go there, you can. You always have me and Mickey to ask questions to. So, we'll have Q&A time at the end. Actually, I'm pretty fine with keeping this flexible. If you want to ask a question at any time, feel free to do so. So if there's an aspect that you're really needing to, have answered, I want to make sure we get that covered for you. So we'll go deep into a few things today. But maybe we could start out with any other questions. I know some of people watched the videos, some didn't, but basically I covered cleaning products, beauty products, over-the-counter medications, cooking supplies, and pantry foods. So yeah, any questions about any of that, you can unmute yourself, or I think there's a raise your hand feature, or you can type in the chat if you don't have audio.
Bridget, this is Jean. I have a question.
Yeah.
It may not have been covered in those videos. I can't remember, but I just bought a new dishwasher, and they're telling me I need to use the rinse aid part of it. And my guess is it's got all kinds of chemicals in it. And I don't remember if anything was discussed in those videos about that.
That's a great question, Jean. So is it a liquid rinse aid they want you to put in?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I have seen a non-toxic rinse aid at the natural grocery store. So just use that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gotten so much easier. I know that one of the things I caught myself on is we used to have like a white carpet pretty much. We lived in Oregon and had a dog. Like there was no way that carpet was going to stay clean. So we had a carpet cleaner, and I hadn't even thought about like the carpet cleaning solution. I never occurred to me that I should find a non-toxic version. So when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, where would I find this? And it was like right down the road at my natural grocery store. So luckily it's getting easier to find those things. And if you really can't find it, you could get a specialty, go online or something. Great question.
Where do you find natural grocery stores?
Oh, so you're in Houston. Is Whole Foods kind of your main one?
Yeah, kind of. But I bought laundry detergent from them, thinking it was great because it's got all these things. It says it doesn't have this stuff, but I can't remember now what it had in it. But I was surprised. It was like, oh no, this has got something that
like fragrance or something.
And maybe it was fragrant. I don't remember. It may have been fragrance.
Yeah.
But I was surprised because it's probably the closest thing we have to a natural grocery store.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with all the, I mean, Whole Foods is pretty well known around the U.S. And we have here Sprouts in Arizona. We used to have New Seasons in Oregon. I don't know if you have any co-ops there, Jean.
We do have a Sprouts.
Oh, you do? Well, they have the natural rinse aid. I know that because I've got it. Yeah. Okay. And, I'm sure Whole Foods has a better detergent. It's just that one,
Yeah, maybe.
There's a little bit of, yeah.
And I can't remember what it was in there, but it was like, no.
Yeah, you got to be a little
I knew because you were supposed to be good. And you got this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not sure the way, I mean, a friend of mine posted on Facebook, she's the green smoothie girl. I don't know if you guys follow her, but she was just posting like Whole Foods is just full of like candy and chips and like, some of them are really great and have all these great health sections, but certainly not everything in there is healthy. So you have to be a little discriminating. Oh, Mickey said, oh, wow, Mickey already found you a health food store. Betsy's Health Food in Houston, Texas. So that could be something to check out too. Cool. Okay, any other questions?
I was going to ask
that.
Oh, sorry. In the chat, I don't know if you see the chat if you're on your phone, but there's a store called Betsy's Health Food in Houston, Texas too.
Betsy's Health Food. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say also, if you can't find a local store, Thrive Market online will have
That's true.
Good things too. I quit my Costco membership and ended up just paying a membership there because there's so many better products that I can get in terms of, I'm able to buy a rinse aid here at a local store, so I haven't particularly bought that, but it could.
And it's small. Yeah. That's a good company. There's a company called Member Boxes that I'm getting involved with that will be similar. There'll be a fee and then you can buy stuff. Okay.
I think someone had asked this question, but if you're not going to use plastic, or I freeze some things in glass, but what are some other good materials to freeze, like, that little bag of spinach that you're going to throw in a smoothie, or, leftovers, or, that kind of thing?
I am not much of a freezing person.
Okay.
So I think that's why I was like a little stumped with that. I would say, still if you can do it in glass, that's great. And then you were the one who said you used some beeswax bags.
That wasn't me, but yes, other people are, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then if it's already cold or you just don't feel like there's going to be a lot of transfer, then I think, you can do plastic. Like if you buy frozen berries, they're going to be in a plastic bag.
Right.
I'm sure over this course we'll have like some of the pros and cons. Like berries are really great for you. And if you live in certain places, there's no way you're going to get fresh berries. So you just have to kind of compromise. So yeah, other than that, I'll think about that question, but I don't have any really special answers, unfortunately. Okay, there's a little questions in the chat. Lena said she has some questions about detox etiquette. So are you saying, Lena, that some of your friends have mold in their homes, perhaps, and you don't want to visit? Is that right? Maybe you can unmute yourself too.
I'm like 74, so I have friends who are older and in less able condition, but they don't understand fluctuating energy, that I want to prioritize my energy for me. And also friends who have mold in their home and where they actually probably should be moving, and I do not want to visit, So I'm just wondering if anyone's had some nice ways of expressing this. Have you had any experience? I know you've had to vacate several places in emergency situation. But when things aren't emergency or apparent, and you look fine on the outside, but you're dealing with stuff on the inside, I just, what do people do to mitigate this, to get it across without feeling like hurting feelings, but you have to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I understood the second part of that question, so I'll answer that and then I'll get back to the first. I'm a little blunt, and I don't think I'm a very blunt person, but if I'm really affected by mold, it's gonna kick through. Maybe different than you, Lena, like I've already had to have a lot of these conversations, so I'm not as, I don't know, I'm not as like delicate, or I don't know what's the right word. It's clear to me that with my own health, I cannot sacrifice that. So I'll just, if I'm exposed, I'm like, I can't be in here. There's mold in here. It's come up for me once when I was touring a school for my son. I was just like, yeah, I'm out of this classroom. Like, I'm out of this library. Like, my son, and they didn't understand it. They're not going to make any changes. But, and then my brother just was thinking of buying a house, and we toured it, and the basement was moldy. And he's like, what do you think of the house? I'm like, I'm still trying to get over the mold in your basement. Like, I'm just like, and again, he might buy the house, which is crazy to me. I hope he doesn't. But like, people aren't going to necessarily, and as far as visiting, yeah, if they're older and they don't get out much, but, maybe just offer to meet them at the coffee shop around the corner. Sometimes people say they have a mold allergy so that they don't have to explain the whole thing. They just say, I think I'm allergic to something in your house, so could we meet somewhere else? Just try to keep the conversation short. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I think that's saying that I'm very sensitive to mold. Yeah. Some of these people don't get out. They cannot get out.
Oh, gotcha.
They're dependent on a visit, but they're going to have to find other resources. So
yeah, that's hard.
What I'm hearing. There is no polite way around it. It's just what it is.
I don't know how bad you get, but there's people who maybe are like, could just take a shower after and take some charcoal and like deal with it. But I'm just like not interested in that anymore.
My toxic load is high enough that it doesn't need any addition.
Okay, well then there's your answer.
Sensitive to mold, but I have infections in my mouth and stuff, and a lot of stuff, and blah blah blah, mercury, blah 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 blah, and I just want to avoid whatever I can.
Okay, yeah, I think
I'm just going to take self-preservation.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's your answer. Good job. Yeah, Mickey mentioned in the comments. This is a good one for Kelly. That if you want to wrap something in wax paper and then put it in a plastic bag, then you're reducing some touching. So that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's smart. That's why we all have to get together. Okay, so I'm going to dig into the content of the day here. And I'm afraid we might go a little over because this got off to a slow start, but we'll do our best. So I wanted to show you how to access. I know some people don't have a visual right now, so I'll do my best for the people who can't see. I made it a little easier for you to access the course. Okay, can you see my screen? I think so, okay. So this is my homepage, bridgetdanner.com. If you go to this tab that says Client Access on the right, you can see here your login. Whoops, I went to the wrong page. Hold on a second. There we go. So let's just make it a little easier to find. So it's right there on the home page, and then the password is Detox Love. So this is the main member page. Here you can access the Facebook group if you have Facebook. There's a little survey here that if you haven't done, I'd love for you to do. It's just a few questions just so I know what you're trying to learn about. And then down here are some of the bonuses, so you can get to those now. This one has some green cleaning recipes that someone asked about, so you can get started with that. This is a fabulous interview here about heavy metals and female hormones. And then the others, quite a bit of recipes, so if you want some recipe ideas. And then to get to lesson 1, which we're at today, click there. So as we go, I'll add more lessons. So if you haven't seen the videos, they're here. There's 5 videos. And then Tammy, also on our team, made some notes and links from the videos. So I do want to make this accessible. You know, some people, I'm one of them, I don't love to learn from videos. I prefer to like listen on the move. So if you don't want to always watch, there's lots of writing and different resources. So what I'm going to focus on today is glyphosate, also known as Roundup, and water quality. And then I would like to get to air quality a little bit. I didn't have enough time to make a whole handout on it, but I'm hoping that seeing, just kind of getting a sense, especially with the water quality, of just getting your discernment going about how to choose a water filter, how to look at your water supply, will just get you thinking about the air issue, and we can, again, talk about it, and I might be able to make that handout later. So yeah, most people on this course are pretty knowledgeable, which is great, but it means that the basic stuff, you don't need just the basic stuff. And you already know a lot. So basically, to get to your next level, you're going to just need to pick some things out of this course that really resonate with you, that sound like, oh, that's something I need to pursue. Oh, that sounds like something that could really be affecting my health. But that's some area of my home I haven't really looked at yet. So probably most of you are already avoiding GMO foods and, are aware about Roundup. Would you say that? So if you can say on the chat, is that correct? I don't know where my chat is now because I'm screen sharing, but I see Carrie nodding her head. Okay. Okay. But we can always go deeper with Detox. And I think this going a little deeper with glyphosate is going to be eye-opening and also give you some detox ideas. So I just shared these all as like a Google Docs. That way I can go in and edit as, you guys have questions. You can go in and add more information. But yeah, I'll go into this briefly, but glyphosate is also known as Roundup, and it's not just on GMO crops, which are Roundup-ready crops, but it's also used to dry crops like sugarcane and wheat so that they can process them kind of more efficiently. So beyond avoiding GMO, you really have to be careful about avoiding non-organic food. And beyond that, here's some of the stuff that's a little shocking. Roundup's in everything now. They found it in organic wine, organic vegetables. It's in rainwater. It's in drinking water. It's just leaching all over the place. I had myself tested this spring. I was pretty surprised to see how much glyphosate was in my body, and I'm teaching about this stuff. So at the time when I found it out, I was like, I don't know where it's coming from. I mean, I do eat at restaurants sometimes. That's one source. But other than that, I really didn't know. And frankly, I really didn't know how to get rid of it. So it was just eye-opening for me. And we'll get into some statistics on what it does. And some of it has to do with weight and digestive disorders. If you're a poor detoxifier, like maybe some people in this group, if you've had your genetics tested or you just suspect that, it could just be harder for you to clear this stuff. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions. I want to make sure I can. Oops. Hi, Anna. I wish they would let us just people come in automatically, but it may, sorry to keep you waiting. Okay, so I can see the participants. Where's my chat? Okay, I don't think any new questions, but yeah, feel free to type them in as you go. So we have some people in this course from Canada, and I don't know if we have any other countries, but the highest user of glyphosate is the USA. We're just going way beyond everybody else on that, and this is really interesting. In Russia, Vladimir Putin is like on a charge to go all organic in that country. And here in our country, nobody's concerned about that in the least in our administration. So just interesting. There's less used in Europe, but France is one that's also really concerned about Roundup. Just interesting of note, the company that now owns Monsanto, who makes glyphosate, is Bayer, which is a German company. So I haven't really seen any, shift in thinking with that, but just something interesting. So I looked up Canada, and I don't know how it compares to the US, but it is sanctioned by your government as being safe. So yeah, I looked up some different reports and stuff, and a lot of the reports, they either kind of say they're partnering with the EPA on their decision, or some of the information they got from Monsanto on the studies. So the trouble with data is it's always hard to, there's different ways to interpret it. And with toxins especially, it's really tough because you can say that something in a small dose potentially couldn't cause as much harm. But A, yes, a small dose of a toxin really can cause a lot of harm. And B, we're getting tons of sources, and they all work synergistically. So I disagree, basically, and I have some more points about it. And we don't have to get too deep into all the science, but you can come back and read it later from your area. But as you probably know, it interrupts the building of healthy bacteria in the gut, kind of kills those off. And bacteria in the gut are so important for neurotransmitter production, preventing inflammation. So things like autoimmunity can be connected to it. You guys may have heard of this researcher, Stephanie Seneff, out of MIT. She's a really awesome researcher and spokesperson for Roundup, against Roundup, who definitely has some haters because of it all. But it's not just the glyphosate, it's, what else is in it that's mixing with it. Again, they work synergistically. Super high levels in breast milk are now being found in the United States. Connection to autism. Autoimmunity, which probably some people in this group have. It's pretty interesting what it does. It looks like the amino acid glycine, so the body tries to use it like glycine, and even plants try to use it. So it becomes like not just on the plant, but it becomes like part of the plant. And this is kind of how it's related to vaccines. So I guess they build a vaccine in like a substrate that's based on like an animal protein. And so that substrate, that animal has eaten GMO food. So now its own proteins are mutated. And this mutation, I think, is what is causing, when young children are exposed to it and their bodies are building protein, they're building DNA, they're getting some faulty information. So it's pretty interesting stuff, also pretty depressing stuff. Let's see, there's a few that I thought were especially interesting for this group. So I found a big section about polycystic ovarian syndrome and estrogen, testosterone disruption. Here's a bit of that. So glyphosate blocks this enzyme that changes androgens into estrogens. Karen, this is one for you. So, this is just one way that potentially you could be having more testosterone in your body causing acne instead of building the estrogen you need to control your weight. So this is just one way. So when that enzyme is inhibited, also it can have a negative effect on body weight. There's one question, I think, so I'll go check it. Yeah, Kelly said that she can eat more wheat in Europe, and yeah, I think that's a strong theory, right? It's our wheat is less, or their wheat is, I don't know, more in its original form, right? Like a loaf of bread there just like gets hard the next day. Our loaf of bread in the US lasts for like 3 weeks. It doesn't make any sense. It's just more preservatives and that kind of a thing. So yeah, the glyphosate I think is a big theory. I just got interviewed the other day, and I'm really good usually about wheat, but I don't know. I just traveled recently, and it just was like, oh, I'm just going to eat some things. I got the worst stomach ache. It was like the worst. It was a good reminder. So this is one more point about the aromatase activity. It prevents that estrogen from being made and affects your weight. So, shown to inhibit aromatase activity at levels 100 times lower than the recommended use for agriculture. So at a very low level, again, it's not really the amount, it's just, these things are so toxic. Those effects kicked in less than 18 hours. So, and you guys have probably heard about this lawsuit that Monsanto lost recently to the tune of $289 million from a groundskeeper who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from exposure to glyphosate over the years. So I had heard of it, but I wanted to kind of get the details for you guys. And if you want to read more about that, that's here. But there's some people getting fired up. Unfortunately, not enough people. But there's 5,000 other active lawsuits right now. Monsanto, by the way, has not backed down a bit. It said his cancer had nothing to do with the glyphosate, and also that, there's all these studies that show how safe it is. So that's kind of what we're up against. So if you are interested in testing for glyphosate, there is a test. There's a couple tests for it, actually. You can do a urine test, the one I mentioned. We'll talk about this more in the testing section, but if it's something you're curious about, and probably if you're already getting some other things tested, it's more of like an add-on test. If you're testing chemicals or you're testing organic acids, you can test for glyphosate. And it's better to, what they do kind of like a challenge. So you try to push out some toxins before testing. And usually we do that with a glutathione supplement or a sauna. So here's a little more information on that testing if you want to learn more. And you can test for it in your water. So I'll show you in the water unit that I didn't know about this at the time. I didn't test mine, but I would be really curious to see the glyphosate levels. I live in an area with a lot of golf courses, and I haven't exactly seen the statistics on golf courses and glyphosate. I know that golf courses do use a lot of herbicides and fertilizers and that kind of thing. So just interesting. And then detoxification. The good news is there are ways to detoxify. I have a fairly long list, and some of them I'm more familiar with than others. So this is sort of my short list here of how to detoxify from glyphosate. And again, if you do some of these things, a lot of them will help you detoxify from potentially other elements as well. So sun exposure on your skin and on your eyeballs. So not in sunglasses all the time. There's a connection between glyphosate and a certain eye disease that I don't have listed here. But that's, I think, only just like one reason to make sure it's touching your eyes. Also, that's just information for your brain that just kind of gets your circadian rhythm going correctly. And this, I forgot to write the recipe, but this is probably the easiest one you can do, is apple cider vinegar drink every day. I actually have mine, I don't know if you can see me anymore with the screen share, but I actually made my drink with me. If I can edit this. So it's basically 1 tablespoon raw apple cider vinegar. Oops. About 3 ounces organic grape juice. And then water. Like 12 ounces or whatever fits in your glass. So apple cider vinegar and sauerkraut juice have a special ability here, I'll show you down here, to fully break down glyphosate. This is certain acetobacter breaks down some kind of bond in the glyphosate. So that's pretty awesome news. And also apple cider vinegar is great for your digestion, especially as we age and we make less stomach acid. So I think that that's really exciting news. It feels good, it tastes good, and it's super easy. So there's one comment about that. Yes, Braggs is raw. Thank you, Mickey. And then probiotic foods and or supplements. So if we are potentially being exposed to glyphosate, even in organic food or rainwater or whatever, we need to be constantly rebuilding our gut bacteria because they're under siege, basically. So I really make sure every day you're getting some kimchi, some sauerkraut, some fermented carrots. My new favorite thing is this yogurt called Coco-Yo. Has anyone ever had that? It's like the best, most delicious, super thick coconut yogurt. It's amazing. So yeah, Megaspore is a probiotic that we usually also recommend. And I'm usually a little sporadic with my probiotic usage, but after learning this information, I'm like every day. I need to make sure I'm doing it every day. Water, of course, and clean water, just to be rinsing out from your kidneys. Making sure you have a good bowel movement, so you're moving that waste out. And we'll talk more about that in the food section. And I would say, sauna. I don't know how many people are already saunaing now, but if you can get to a sauna or you thought about buying a sauna, I think it's a great investment for modern life to do at least 2 or 3 times a week. And then to use some of the binders that we'll talk about in the supplement lesson. And we'll talk a little bit about it below too. Let me see. Okay. So some of the things on this list I'm more familiar with than others, like I can vouch for, and some not as much. But I just kind of made a whole big list. Fulvic acid is something that I've used, and we're writing a blog about it now. I don't fully understand it yet, but it's kind of a natural binder. It's pretty safe. We'll talk about that more later. I threw this one on the list, pomegranate juice, because I recently had a consult with one of these chemical lab testers, and she was saying that pomegranate juice could detox pesticide by turning on this POM1 enzyme. But I frankly could not find much to back that up. So I just basically saw it was like an anti-inflammatory. It does have some benefits, certainly. It's actually mildly estrogenic, which can be good if you're dealing with estrogenic cancers or high estrogen levels. So I know we had some questions about that, but I'm not entirely sure if it's going to really remove pesticide, but that's what she said. Let's see what else here. So what glyphosate does is it blocks certain pathways. I think it blocks, so sulfur foods are important for detoxification in general, but I think that glyphosate blocks the production of like sulfur compounds in some ways. So getting extra sulfur-rich foods. Epsom salt baths not only have magnesium, but they have sulfur as well. So they have a couple benefits and they're pleasant. So I think that's something also that you, like if you can't get to a sauna, to do Epsom salt baths 2 to 3 times a week would be great. We talked about sun. Chlorella is another one that can be really nice for detox. It can be a little bit cold natured, which means you can give you loose stool. I think there's some debate about it with Hashimoto's, like potentially like it has too much iodine or something. We can talk about that one more, but I do think it's pretty powerful if you tolerate it well. And then manganese is a trace element to increase. Here's some of those foods. So things like charcoal, the zeolite, bentonite clay. These are all binders, which basically bind up toxins, especially in the digestive tract. Since we're not quite on the lesson for supplements, I didn't give links for this, but there's a product I really like that's like a mix of all these. There's definitely some herbs that can be helpful too. One would be milk thistle. This one was interesting. Silica-rich water removes aluminum from the brain. So aluminum and glyphosate work synergistically to damage the brain, basically. So silica in certain spring waters you can find are silica-rich. You can look up in your area. And there are some silica supplements. Folate production is blocked or hampered with glyphosate. So that one is a B vitamin you can get in a B complex. And getting enough proteins for your liver. Any questions about any of that? If you want to do some more reading, this is some pretty depressing reading about how much glyphosate is in things like Cheerios and Ritz crackers. If you haven't seen that, it's pretty interesting. And yeah, here's some more articles. I'm sorry I don't have all these labeled, but there aren't. Here's the PCOS one. Here's a little bit about Canada's regulations of glyphosate. Here's the one about the aluminum in the brain. So a couple people I know for sure were concerned about brain fog. And while there is a relationship to just menopause and brain fog as your body switches from which type of estrogen it uses, there's also a pretty high link to toxicity. And again, even if you're not sure you have glyphosate, but you want to just try out some of these things, just trying adding, 2 or 3 things could be pretty huge for you. Just doing the vinegar drink or eating probiotic foods every day. And we'll talk more about ways to reduce inflammation in the brain. Any questions? I thought that was going to take all day, but it wasn't that bad. Okay. So I'm just going to go back and we'll get into water. So how many people are already, if you wouldn't mind to say in the chat, how many people are already filtering water, and how many, and what kind of filter are you using? I'm just thanking God right now that this thing is recording, because that was a really stressful start for me and I kind of forgot to push record. Okay, Mickey's using reverse osmosis and Berkey. Okay, those are the ones I'm familiar with. Rain Soft, Rosina said, I don't know that brand. So interesting. Hi, Anna, did you want to say something? Oh, here, do you need to be unmuted?
I don't know. Oh,
there you go. There you go.
Oh, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, you're learning. So you're just pressing buttons and learning. So you're able to talk, or you can type in the chat too. Are you on a phone or a computer?
Phone.
Phone, okay. So it's a little trickier on the phone because you have to scroll to the chat screen to chat if you want to write in the chat. But you can also just at any time unmute yourself and ask a question.
Okay, I was just going to say I use a Santevia water pitcher.
Santevia, okay.
Santevia.
Santevia, okay. I don't know that one.
Yeah, my ND recommended it. So.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up. Structured water, someone said. Berkey. Anna, you came in late. Do you want to say where you're from and what you want to learn?
Sure. I'm from Toronto.
Oh, okay, nice.
want to learn more about, I guess, detox and if there's ways to detox hormones specifically. Because I generally don't like a detox all overall, and the was taking a supplemental testosterone. I'm postmenopausal, and it went like my testosterone went through the roof. So there's something wrong with the way my hormones are detoxing. So I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, okay. So when you use a supplement,
yeah.
Well, it could. So was on a blood test or a urine test, or
a blood test, and I was taking like hormonal, like topical testosterone, and I'm still taking estrogen and progesterone. Yeah.
So I think what sometimes happens there is that the cells are inflamed, so the hormone doesn't go into the cells. But then, it could also be like detoxification through the gut and the liver are also compromised. So, okay, great. Okay, I'm going to mute you again. Okay. Lena was saying how to get fluoride from out of shower water, and I do think that's on our document here. So let me go back to screen sharing. Okay, so this is the main document here about water quality. And it sounds like a lot of people are already doing stuff, which is great. If you're like me, sometimes you do stuff and you don't entirely know why you're doing it, because the conversation is pretty complicated about water filters and air filters, which is why I haven't finished that one yet. So hopefully this gives you a little more well-rounded picture. So just for a little perspective, and I don't know in Canada how this compares, but really when you think about it, like the environmental movement isn't that old. It's like 80 years old, so, and it seems like from what I've read, there was a lot of progress that was made for a while. There's a lot of public support, I guess, which is great. So some of the laws here, especially the Safe Drinking Water Act, are what has influenced our water today. So this act was made, and during this 10-year period, they went really crazy. They were listing all the contaminants, setting levels, and basically the municipalities couldn't keep up. So they changed the law and made it very different, made it, I don't know if you could say hard to name a new contaminant, but basically, because since 1996, there's been no new contaminants added to the list. So every 5 years they say, oh, maybe we'll add these ones to the list, but then they don't add them. I don't understand why. I think a lot of it could be financial. It means that every town and city needs to increase its filtration when these laws are changed, and they can't afford it. Here's a little bit more about all that. So a third of them are in violation and still aren't paying anything. Here's a little bit about like some of the dumping that happens in U.S. waterways. Millions of pounds of waste is reported that they're allowed to dump. So if something you're dumping isn't one of these 89 things, you can just dump it. It's insane. Speaking of reproductive, female hormones, there's 4.5 million pounds were legally dumped in 2012 that would disrupt your hormones. So here's another little statistic on the pipes. It's a mess. It's a mess in the United States. I don't know if it's much better in Canada. When pipes are laid, they usually only last 75 or 100 years. So who wants to go in and fix them? Who has the money? $1 trillion in repair are needed. So that could be lead, it could be copper, it could be plastics. Even if it's not in your home, you could still be getting exposed. All this being said, U.S. water isn't that bad in a lot of senses, but you kind of have to compare, like, well, what are you comparing it to? you know, some countries obviously have no water filtration. You get very sick from their water. So, you know, there's some good things happening. At least there's some regulation. But from a health perspective, it's not enough. So there's 267, at least from my reading, contaminants in water. I don't know, there could be more. This is a pretty good resource about some of the things in water and what they could cause. It was written by the EPA, and I'm surprised how progressive it is. Thyroid is, I think, something that people are dealing with in this group. And this rocket fuel additive, you'll see quite a bit in people's chemical testing of their urine. So we're being exposed to airplanes overhead that are getting into our water and disrupting our thyroid. Here's something on cancer. Here's a section on fertility. So I know most people in this group aren't at the fertility age. A couple are. But, you know, hampering of fertility and trouble in menopause are kind of like, you know, similar things are happening. This one is also for Karen. Karen, I'm picking on you because another thing that can affect things like acne and weight gain is arsenic, which is in the water. This was in the webinar that we did a couple weeks ago. So arsenic in the water can make you more resistant to insulin. And this is really interesting. So if you have less estrogen, either because of what we talked about before with the glyphosate or just because you're getting older, they have found that that has a synergistic effect of making the effect of arsenic more severe. You become more sensitive to insulin. Now, this study was done on mice, but to me, it's still interesting. And there's never just one factor. And I think that that's why so many of us in perimenopause and menopause are getting hit really hard. You know, our body is already changing. It's already going through a change that we can't avoid. It's in a little bit of an unstable state. And then we're exposed to all these toxins. So we're just at a disadvantage, unfortunately. So I won't read every bit of this, but learning a little bit about your water. Somebody said they had well water. Just knowing where your water comes from and what you might be up against could be useful. For example, if you're in farming areas, you probably have more farming chemicals. In urban areas, more industrial. Okay, so to find out what's in your water, is anybody, you want to say in the chat, have you ever tested your water or looked at your water quality report? Probably that person with well water. Kelly says no. Or you can just unmute yourself if you want to say. Carrie tests annually. That's great. Carrie, are you on a well? Can't remember. Oh, you are on a well. So that's good. If you're on a well, you need to keep testing every year because it can change. Carrie's using a UV system, so we're going to learn UV kills bacteria and viruses and mold, and then a carbon filter, which removes some things. Okay, so maybe just Carrie is testing. I think probably just people on wells are being recommended to test. I don't really need this microphone. Okay. So one resource is to review your water quality report. And this is free, and you can get it by Googling it. I don't know. Kelly, are you in Canada, Kelly? Or am I making that up? No?
No.
Oh, okay. I know we have two people, but I'm getting them mixed up. If you're from Canada, how do you find out? I would love to know. I know that we have this in the U.S. You probably have something like this in Canada too. So I wanted to show you my water quality report. And this is some of the things you can find on it. Where was the facility where your water was processed? What was the source of the water? What was used to treat and clean your water? And what are the contaminant levels in your water? This is a little tedious, but these are some of the markers you may see on your report. Now, looking at these reports, is also kind of tedious. There are a lot to look at. Hold on one second. So I'm in Arizona. So some of the downsides of water where I live, again, I think is pesticides and herbicides, recycling of water because we're in the desert, and some things I think that might be in my favor is my area is pretty new. My pipes are not old. They're like 20 years old. So that's good. So here's my water report. There was also some other information on websites and stuff. One thing also about my state is there's higher arsenic in the soil. So now my report didn't seem to list all 89 chemicals from what I can tell. Maybe it just lists, I don't know why it doesn't. Maybe some of them were, I don't know why it doesn't list all of them. But it lists some. Arsenic is listed here. Now, this MCL and MCLG is sort of like the goal and what's allowed. So they're allowed to have up to 10, I think that's parts per billion of arsenic in the water. But their goal is to have 0 because that would be the best thing for your health. And their sample average was almost 3, but they've seen as high as 8.3 in the water. I'll show you my test result soon. Sorry. But yeah, that's a little bit about the arsenic. I might not get into all of these, but let's see if there's any others I could pick on. Sometimes the levels are the same. What's recommended and what's allowed are the same, but you kind of have to take these with a grain of salt. For instance, arsenic, they wanted to list it as 5 parts per billion as the allowed amount. But again, just because of finances that they knew like communities couldn't get it that low, they made it 10. They're like, oh, let's just compromise and make it 10. So 10 is not for best health. It's pretty interesting. And we'll find out a little bit more about that. But there are some rules that are better for best health. Some rules that, not rules, but guidelines that California put in place. Sometimes you'll hear a little bit about that here. California has some guidelines, and sometimes you'll see those numbers on your report. So here's a section on disinfectant byproducts, some things that are produced when they add chlorine to the water and what, what's produced there. So my water has chlorine. And these are some of the byproducts. So here's some of where my water comes from. Comes from the Colorado River, groundwater, aquifers. They got to pull in water from all over. And here's about, and this says, this is pretty interesting. These are unregulated contaminants here. So I don't think that they have to report these, but they did. And they said where they came from. Again, this is kind of dense to look at, so I won't go like too far. Here's lead and copper that could come from pipes. And then they give some tips and more information. So it's not like super sexy, it's just, but it's free and it gives you a little information. So my teacher who taught me about drinking water, she likes you to use these reports and get familiar. Because not every filter can filter everything, like we're gonna learn. So if you have certain things in your water, like chloramine that we'll learn about, you need to know it because a carbon filter will not filter it out. So this is one way to find out. Sorry. And then you can also test on your own. So I tested about 6 months ago, but the company I tested with wasn't that sexy either. It doesn't test any glyphosate or chemicals. I just didn't even know what I was buying, and I just bought it. It's okay, so I'll show you that one. Whoops, so small. So I just had 3 heavy metals that were in the, caution range. It was arsenic, which I sort of knew was in the water here. Uranium, also just in the ground. So uranium from like Chernobyl and uranium in the ground are a little different. And you know, this test is not telling me a lot, but this is giving me my actual arsenic, which is 3.4, which according to which source you talk to, I prefer that to be lower. And then I had some aluminum. So it wasn't a super exciting test. I did have fluoride in my water. It says it's acceptable levels, but what does that really mean? It's, you know, it's kind of up to interpretation. So that was that. Then let's get back to. And then a third option for testing, which I don't know if this is what you do, Carrie, or not, is in the US, you can go to what's called a cooperative extension service and ask for a lab company that can test your well water. So I think you could ask these same labs to test your tap water. I'm not really sure. But I think that they're required to refer you to someone who can test your well water for like safety. So those are the 3 ways to test. And then as you think about buying a filter, or maybe you're thinking about switching out your filter, you're wondering if it's working, there are some considerations. You know, is it something you're going to invest in for the long term? We talked about what's in your water. The main areas you want to consider are drinking water and bathing water. So some things won't absorb when you're bathing, but chlorine will absorb, for instance, and it'll vaporize. Oh, okay. So Carrie says, I think she is in Canada, that the health units have tests available. Okay. So there's a few ways to filter your bath water. You can have a whole house filter, or you can have a shower head filter, or a bath tap filter. And there's a few ways to filter from the from the bath. So the whole house filter is probably the best, but if you get one for your shower head, these are probably the 2 types you'd run into. Probably this KDF type is the best. There's not a lot of choices here. You can't do charcoal in a shower situation because the water's going too fast. But here's a bit about drinking water. So activated carbon is probably the most common type. It's in like pitcher filters. You know, it's pretty good. There's a range. So substantially the small size carbon is best. A big block of carbon is best. If the water goes through slowly, it's best. It can remove a lot of things, but it cannot remove some things like fluoride and arsenic. You need a different type of filter. Or mercury. Somebody asked about mercury. I don't think there's tons of mercury in the water, but just so you know that. And then here's a few more filter types. A catalytic carbon filter is a little fancier version. Somebody asked about fluoride, I think. An activated alumina filter will filter fluoride. We'll talk more about that in a minute. An ion exchange filter removes arsenic. is all very boring, but it's just reference for you if you're going shopping. UV filter someone had kills things in the water, but it doesn't remove things. Distilled water isn't really so great. It's free of most things, but because it's absent of minerals, it's not that good for you. And then reverse osmosis filter, which is what I currently have, has a lot of benefits, but it does have some downsides. It uses like 5 or 10 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of water, which is pretty lame. It does strip the minerals from your water, so you have to put them back in. Many systems will have a cartridge to put them back in. But it's the most complete of any filter system. So that's sort of what I like about it. It kind of just covers a lot of bases, pharmaceuticals and metals and all that stuff. If you're going to shopping, you can also look for these certifications to see what the system you buy, like what level of stuff it has, what level of cleansing it does. Can I talk about, yes, Mickey, you can put vitamin C directly into a bath, and that'll kill, that's not the word kill, but it might kill some things, and it will also clean the water. So you can use vitamin C bath to clean the water, probably also as a detox, Mickey. Just feel free to type that in if you can use it as a detox as well. But you can definitely use it to clean the water just by putting vitamin C in your bath, which I wish I had known that sooner, because it took me a long time to buy this whole house filter that we have, and I like to take baths, and I didn't know you could buy a bath head filter. I didn't know about the vitamin C. So, this is a big area, and sometimes we just don't know some of these things. Let's see if she wrote back. She used powdered vitamin C. Yeah, I think that's good. So I'm only listing 2 brands here because they're the only ones I really know. The Berkey is a big silver water filter with a tank on the top and the bottom. It has sort of a proprietary filter, but I think it's like a carbon plus, I don't know what else is in it. You can go to the site. It does quite a bit of filtering. Lots of things it filters. It doesn't filter fluoride. But you can buy a second filter to filter fluoride. They are a little spendy, and you really do want to get a big one because they're kind of a pain to fill. But I wanted to mention that they have scratch and dent Berkeys that mine wasn't dented or scratched, and it was cheaper. So I like the Berkey as an option. It's good if you're renting or if you're single and you don't use a lot of water. And then Aquasana is the company I went with for a whole house filter. They also have just sink. You don't have to buy a whole house. But the brand looked good. I wanted a system I could recommend, whether you lived in New Jersey or Minnesota, wherever you live, and they will ship it to you wherever. And I think it's really affordable. Our whole system, which was a whole house filter plus an under the sink reverse osmosis with remineralization, was $800, which I thought was great. But it was another $800 to get the whole thing installed, which was a bit of a bummer. It might have been $1,000. It was just kind of a pain. But if you're going to stay in a house for a while, I think it's a good investment. And then there are some services that will read your water report and get this dialed in for you very specifically. This is, again, kind of how I've been taught, is really you want to understand your water and then get a system that fits for your water. So these are 2 men who both have companies to help you do that, which I think is pretty interesting. You probably know this, bottled water is not the greatest solution. It's often in plastic. It's often not that clean. If you're going to buy it, better to buy in glass and from companies that you know. I would say that if you're in a pinch and you don't have a filter system where you can go to the grocery store and get those big jugs filled of water and it's reverse osmosis and stuff, I think it's not a bad idea. But I could be wrong. It could be really nasty. But I know the first time I lived in Arizona, I was just living here temporarily. We didn't have a filter and the water tasted so bad. So we'd go buy that refillable water, and at least it was, it got us through. So here's a few little bit of information. Anna has a Berkey shower filter. Yeah, Anna, I'd be curious what is in the Berkey shower filter, because I don't think it can be the same filter, because from a Berkey in the kitchen, it's incredibly slow for the water to come down. So it may be one of these, what is it called, KPF filters, like we talked about. It's like flaked copper and zinc or something like that. Any other questions on this? Awesome. So I feel like it's dinner time for everybody. So I don't know if I want to get into the air, but let me prepare some more. Are people interested in air filtration? Is that a topic that's popular? You can write in the chat or you can say something. People have air filters. What are your thoughts on filters? So certainly more we could cover, but it's just, lack of time. We can talk about remodeling. We can talk about mattresses. But I think these were a couple of good areas that just kind of get us thinking and get us, thinking about what's going on in our home. Okay, so there's some questions on air filters. Great. Somebody has an Austin Air. Okay, so I'll write up a little thing on air. Partly why I didn't advertise the air portion was I've had a hard time myself making decisions on best air filters. I've had 2 different ones. I've seen a lot advertised. I think it can be a bit of a tough one, but yeah, Austin Air has a good reputation for sure. I think some others are a little bit of false advertising. So great. So sorry for the mix up on the time, getting a late start, but we'll be at the same time next week and potentially for 6 weeks. The last week is sort of a bonus lesson. And then I'll always post the recording to the Facebook group and also I'll post it right on the lesson. So when you go back to here, you'll see the resources we looked at today, and you'll see the recording for today's call. A couple last. Oh, that's good. You can get a scratch and dent Austin Air too. That's good. Yeah, this stuff gets expensive. So, little by little, you just chip away at it, I think. I'll just ask one last question before we go. Next week is the food lesson. And I have some ideas for you guys based on what I'm hearing about menopause and, menopausal changes and supporting that. Anything you especially want to learn or make sure is covered about food? So this either be food to support detox, food to support hormone production. I may talk about some fun things like supporting bile flow and ketones and that kind of a thing. Is that a yes to ketones, Kelly? Whoops.
Than that.
Oh, sorry, can you say that again? I think I muted you.
Bile production. I have a lot of digestive issues, so I have a lot of slow motility and stuff like that. So
okay. Okay, good. I feel like I really have to give you guys the next level stuff. You guys know a lot of stuff already. But yeah, there's some interesting things about like how supporting bile flow can help with weight and inflammation and that kind of thing. So we'll cover that. Ketones, yeah. And I'm not exactly going to support ketogenic diet, but just kind of talk about the importance of fats and what they can do for you. anti-inflammatory foods. Okay, so Anna's saying she has trouble kind of eating ketogenic and also anti-inflammatory. Yeah, I have plenty of information on anti-inflammatory foods, so that should be good. All right, thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in a week. If you're on Facebook, you're welcome to ask a question there. In the meantime, some people don't use Facebook. If you have a question you want me to cover before about foods, you can always email as well. All right, thanks, bye.